number them. And when I started this, probably under 200 now, over 200. But considering how many brands there are, like, the thousands of brands, and the fact that they're mostly produced in these, within a smaller group of distilleries. So that was a big learning for me. And it actually helped guide me when we were selecting our own distillery, because that let me narrow it down, because I decided I don't want to use a distillery that is producing for a lot of suppliers,
Yeah.
that's producing for a lot of brands for a number of reasons. I didn't want to buy bulk tequila and like just tweak it and, put a label on it. I wanted someone who'd let me bring in my own master distiller and like create our taste profile from scratch. So, and I just didn't want to be like lost in the shuffle with like a bunch of like bigger brands. So actually that learning was key for me, but also key to like helping me refine the distilleries that I
Yeah.
would like, talk to.
So what's that journey been like? I've besides consuming tequila, I've not ever made anything with tequila. So
Yeah.
what's the journey been like with like your flavor profile and finding this distillery and finding like the master distiller and all of that?
Mm. Yeah. Which is a great question, because for me, because I was like, we're going to speak to this female consumer, and how are we
Hmm.
going to do it authentically? And it was very important to me that it comes from a female perspective. Like, we're not a company where I'm the figurehead and there's like, oh, there's a woman there. And then
Yeah.
everyone behind me
Yep.
are like the typical industry, middle-aged white men. That's not our company. We're really powered by an all-women team. So I wanted a female master distiller to bring the product to life. So I narrowed it down. I read a book about all the women in tequila. It's a very small book. And I was able to narrow it down pretty quickly. And then I really wanted Anna Maria Romero Mina, because her background as a sommelier, and that she developed the aroma wheel in tequila. So getting the nose on it, I thought, especially if it's consumer, was going to be so critical. So once I narrowed that down, and then, like I said, I had to find a distillery that would let me bring someone else in, because many distilleries have their own legendary master distiller. So they're
Yep.
not going to let you bring an outside one in. So that's kind of, just all the pieces of the puzzle. I was lucky. I got them to fit, even though I was doing this during COVID, like virtually. Um, but then we just started talking about like, she's the one who could figure out if this is the end result I want.
Hmm.
I want this like clean, really easy drink, sippable tequila. I wanted to have some sweeter tasting notes, but naturally derived, not using like additives to get there. So what would be the process, and how would we make it to get to that? From the agave selected to the cooking method, to what types of yeast we use to ferment. Like, if this is kind of what we're looking for end product. And listen, it takes some iteration. I
Yeah.
mean, when we got the first batch, it did not meet our standards or her standards. They didn't follow one direction in the process, like as far as how it was cooled before
Yeah.
fermentation. And, we didn't like it when we had the sample sent. So it did take some, it does take some tweaking and iterations to
Yeah.
get it to exactly how you want it.
Which that would make a ton of sense to me. Like it's like cooking, right? Like you got to do it a couple, 2, 3 times to figure out, okay, this is what I want. I'm curious, like I would have to are there many women master distillers of tequila out there?
There are not a lot. I couldn't tell you the exact number. I know there are at least four, so maybe 4 or 5, like a handful. And there probably could be some more added. But um, when Anna Maria started this, I would say there were probably very few,
Yeah.
like maybe a couple. Um, and I say though, she is a very highly respected master distiller who happens to be a woman. Like, within the realm of all master distillers, she is a very highly regarded master distiller, because she knows her craft really well. She's an artist, and she's like a scientist, kind of, because you have to do the scientific part of it as well, and testing, and an artist.
Yeah, you have to have both pillars, right, to hold
Yeah.
up the house. So you kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I'm curious more about your team. Well, and remind me again, how long has Inspiro been around? Not very long, right?
No, I founded Inspiro Tequila in February of 2020.
Okay.
We launched, Illinois was our first market. We launched in May of 2022. And that was our first market because that's my hometown. We launched online September 2021, but that was like a little bit more just to feel it out, get it, tested a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But Illinois was our first market in May of 2022. And since then, I've had the same national head of sales and marketing, Erica Teamy, that I've had. Like, she's been with me pretty much the whole time, and she's been my full-time person and right hand everything. Um, since then, and now we're opening this month our eighth state. So we're a really small team managing a lot.
I was gonna say, so I mean, when it comes to especially like I mean, with every entrepreneur, like we know that you have to have the right people in the right seats, right? So I'm really curious, like what lessons do you feel like you've learned in leadership and in organizing? I mean, 'cause sometimes it can be like herding cats, right? So what do you feel like are some big lessons you've learned in your time?
Oh my gosh, I've learned so many lessons when it comes to hiring, even if
Mm,
it's agencies or contractors. There are a few big things. One for me is going with my instincts. I usually can tell if it's a right fit or not.
hmm
And whenever I kind of like push something in to fit